The official Exodus YouTube has released over an hour of Q&A content to date, and this video will serve to catch you up on all of that while also organizing it into a shorter, more tidy format, as well as providing a little bit of extra context when I can. This is mostly just an informational video, so you only need to use your ears if you don't want to watch all the trailers again. Since choice consequence has probably been the biggest topic of focus for all of the Q&As, let's start on this topic. Choices made throughout the game will have an impact on the story through loved ones you leave back home, your home world and civilization in general, companions of course, and Archetype even said that there's going to be some crazy outcomes with companions, and also a big impact on the ending of the game. Interestingly enough though, we were also told that our choices will have an impact on progression options for your character. So the core of Exodus revolves around the concept of time dilation and how decisions around time dilation will have consequences that span over the course of years, decades, and even centuries in the game. The ending of the game, which is likely where the centuries part comes in, is something that Archetype says that they've put a lot of work into. We'll get to see some time jumps where we really get to see the consequences of the choices that we made along the way. Archetype says that other Exodus players that you talk with, many of them will have experienced completely different endings from one another. So it's not apparently just small variation endings. We should be expecting some really big differentiations here. Many of you are aware that Matthew McConaughey is playing a part in this game, a character by the name of Cece Orlev, a major character that we'll be seeing and hearing about the impact of some of our decisions through. And this character is said to be some sort of mentor character of sorts and will have a very big presence in the game from the very start to the very end, the epilogue of the game. We're also told to expect a twist of some sorts with this character. I also want to mention that Archetype did confirm that there will be some outcomes that only a small percentage of players will discover, which is certainly music to my ears. We see a lot of that in Baldur's Gate 3. Hopefully they can do some stuff like that. Now, Exodus will not only be a game about our relationships with our companions, though. Romance options have been confirmed for anyone that's wondering. But it's also very much about our relationship with our people. So the player character June Aslan is not exactly a normal human. June is half regular human, half celestial, but June is also a child of Orion Aslan, the founder of the Aslan dynasty and former ruler of your home planet of Lydon. And although June's half-brother has taken control of the planet, June will still have many ties with important leaders and people of Lydon, and there will be many choices and consequences revolving around that. But back to the topic of time dilation. To keep it simple, when you travel at light speed, the world around you speeds up. So in Exodus, when you choose to travel somewhere far away at close to light speed, years or decades may pass for those that you left back at home. And in this game, home is supposedly the capital city of Persepolis on the planet of Lydon. Persepolis will serve as the major hub of our adventure. Archetype also informed us that when we return home, new characters will be introduced to the game, but they also said that there will be a core group of characters that will be with us throughout the journey. Whether they come with us or stay back at home, they'll always be part of the game. Some of our big choices will involve who we decide to take with us on an Exodus, as anyone that we don't take will of course age way beyond where we left them. But having this core group of characters despite time dilation will also allow for us to really form emotional connections with characters and have deep foundational relationships. Returning after an Exodus, you may also find that your city has evolved, and you'll see how new technology has been integrated into everything from the military to civic structures and so on. All of our choices will not revolve around time dilation though, as there will be plenty of other choices that we'll be making, but the ones that do revolve around time dilation will be the most significant. Now, before you embark on an Exodus, you'll be making many important decisions about your friends, family, and your entire world. And you'll be making these choices knowing that for some of them, you won't see their consequences for years or even decades later in the game. So Archetype is doing this in hopes of giving extra weight to these choices. And although a choice that you make before your first Exodus may have big consequences upon your return, that same choice may have even bigger consequences upon your return from your second Exodus. So Exodus is said to not be a linear game in terms of how your game plays out, as many choices can lead to a spider web of outcomes, and we the players will have the freedom to explore the galaxy the way that we want to explore it. Do not expect broad open world spaces though, as this game is structured around linear story missions, but some of the missions do come with some open exploration, specifically on a few of the missions on your home planet. So Archetype is really trying to make every mission that you go on be filled with content that is meaningful and has real significance, rather than you wandering around in meaningless spaces. We're also told that there will be a few cases where we can choose the order in which to tackle story missions and side quests, but that this is not a sandbox type of game. If you're looking for a comparison, Archetype did say that we could potentially think of Knights of the Old Republic or the original Mass Effect. In Exodus, you'll be on specific missions offered across the entire galaxy, with your main purpose being to uncover exotic remnant artifacts. And if you don't know what remnant artifacts are, just think of them as technology from tens of thousands of years in the future, and your goal will be to bring these artifacts back to your home world to hopefully find ways to use them to cure your planet from something that's called the rot. And if the rot is left to its own doing, it will basically make your planet unlivable, as it slowly destroys the important technology keeping the planet of Lydon habitable, among other not so good things that it does as well. We will have choices revolving around what to do with these remnant artifacts that we find, and some of these choices are said to be really complicated, with companions emotionally weighing in. Your people may approve or disapprove of using an artifact in a certain way, etc. Some of these choices may include options such as using an artifact to curate weapons to fight against Celestials, using an artifact a bit more selfishly for yourself perhaps, or using an artifact to expand the scientific discovery of your people. A couple quick examples of some remnants are relativistic Predator or something like that, protomatter, and hell of liquid walls. I'll do an entire video soon on remnants that we actually already know of from the Exodus novel and encyclopedia. Expect a mix of missions from exploring the mysteries of the ancient celestial history on your home world of Lydon, missions that will take you into your local star system, and interstellar missions that take you to distant star systems. Side quests are said to not be filler content, but they are optional, such as how deep you want to dive into a particular companion, their story, and their progression. And let's say if you don't really like a companion, you don't necessarily have to do all that with that companion. Archetype also talked about how the first chunk of the game will take place on the human planet of Lydon, and that this will be the part of the game where you'll really learn about your home, your people, and garner relationships with NPCs, etc. So I'm assuming that after this initial section on Lydon, that's probably when we'll start getting more of that feeling of freedom, and perhaps space exploration will open right up. The story is meant to start at a very personal human level, but become very epic and grand by the end. The inspirations behind James Olin creating Exodus, and James is the studio head and co-founder of Archetype, was him wanting to bring the concept of time dilation to players in a video game, and having those consequences being very magnified. In fact, when James was a child, he even wrote a paper in school around the concept of time dilation, so this is something that he has been extremely interested and passionate about basically his entire life. Chad Robertson, the general manager of Archetype and co-founder, as well as James, also said that some of their inspiration for pursuing this ambitious project comes from them being given the freedom to really build the game in the way that they view to make a great player experience. So, as many of you are aware, Wizards of the Coast owns Archetype Entertainment, but we do hear quite often from Archetype that they are the ones in control here, meaning Archetype is the one in control. But of course, take that as you will, and only time will tell. As far as inspirations from other games and media, many RPGs of the past have inspired Exodus's creation, specifically ones that have a heavy focus on choice consequence, Mass Effect being one of these. We also have Star Wars and Dune being mentioned, and for games that are more current, Horizon Zero Dawn was said to have inspired some of the design around being smart with the tools that you have access to, Metroid in terms of environments and how they make you feel, and overcoming obstacles and barriers in the environment with certain tech. Tomb Raider was mentioned, and even The Last of Us was mentioned. Exodus is based on real-life science, or shall I say, believable science. Peter F. Hamilton and even Adrian Tchaikovsky, two well-known sci-fi authors, and Adrian actually also does fantasy, are both involved in helping with the world building of Exodus. Pretty much everything in the universe of Exodus has some sort of scientific explanation behind how it works, even if it appears to be almost magic-like to a regular human. One way to think of this is take a man from the 1300s and set him in front of a modern day computer. Although I should point out that the humans in Exodus are very technologically advanced compared to where we are today in 2025. But the Celestials are just on a whole different level here. 40,000 years plus of advancement over regular humans type of level. Now, since I mentioned Peter F. Hamilton, he not only wrote the first ever Exodus novel, The Archimedes Engine, which is a great book, I should say, as well as Exodus to Helium C, which comes out next year, but Peter also helped write the encyclopedia, and Archetype even said that they continued to email him all the time regarding the game itself and solving certain problems with the writing and lore. So Peter is a very big part of everything Exodus. Interestingly enough, the universe of Exodus is also based on a real globular cluster in the constellation of Centaurus, and it's called the Omega Centauri. And this is an ancient and very unusual cluster, and it's also the largest known globular cluster in the Milky Way galaxy. This makes it the perfect fit for the Exodus universe to get creative while still maintaining some sense of relatability in a way, and also realism. Companions will of course be a huge part of the Exodus experience, and so far only Tom Vargas and Elise have been officially revealed, but there appears to be at least 3 more, 2 of which we already have a decent idea as to who they may be and what type of creatures that they are. This one right here is very much appearing to be an awakened octopus, as it is confirmed that we'll have 1 awakened animal companion, but do note that there will be plenty more awakened that we'll be interacting with in the game. And this companion right here appears to be Emrys, a Deva Celestial, which is a super interesting celestial species that I'll talk more about in a future video, as well as the companions. Now, June, the player character, will be a fully voiced protagonist that can be played as male or female. Someone did ask a while ago if players will be able to play as a non-human character in this game, and the answer at that time was a bit cryptic, but we would eventually learn that June is the child of a human father and a celestial mother. So June is human, but also kind of half human, half celestial, if you will. So June will possess some unique non-normal human traits from his mother, such as having neural induction pads on his hand, which will allow June to interact with celestial technology, as well as communicate with awakened animals and changelings. As far as character creation options, despite being forced to play as either male or female June, we were told that we will still have some options, but they have yet to reveal what those options are. As far as June's personality, think more on the lines of Mass Effect rather than a character with a completely empty slate of a personality, such as in Dragon Age or Dragon Age Origins. June will have some sort of established personality that's written by the devs, but at the same time, you have plenty of control and RP over decisions, and in some ways how June comes across. Now, character progression of June will include some skill trees and progression paths, but on top of that, Archetype seems to really be pressing the importance of our story decisions affecting how June is shaped. Exodus will support many different playstyles, and you'll be building a character that suits you as you progress and make choices, etc. When it comes to general gameplay and combat, there will be different options offered that tie into your build that allow you to try to handle missions in various different ways. Stealth, for example, will be viable many times, and there's some tools in the player kit that are dedicated to stealth, and even a couple companions fit that stealth build quite well. You'll of course have plenty of opportunities to go in guns blazing. In some cases, you'll also be able to handle missions more diplomatically by talking your way through. Do Do note that things may not always go as planned though. The game is said to encourage strategic thinking and planning, especially for combat, but sometimes things just happen and you will have to improvise. Since I'm not sure where exactly to put this in the video, I do want to mention that a weapon called the Recycler has been confirmed to be a base weapon for June, and this weapon acts as a bit of a Swiss army knife. It can transform, it has utility use, and it can pull in scrap material to be used as ammo. But there will of course be a ton of unique different types of weapons that will be coming across, and if you find some celestial weapons, they should be quite powerful and interesting. In the book, the Archimedes Engine, if any of those show up, we are in for quite the treat. As far as what drives June on in the story, well, we start off as a salvager just trying to scrape by in a dying world. But for various reasons, June knows that he or she is destined for something greater, which ends up in June becoming a traveler in hopes of building a better life not only for June, but for the ones that June loves as well. I'll talk more about travelers in the next section. But June ultimately grows enough in power and starts getting involved with and attracting the attention of the leaders on Leiden and a lot of people on Leiden. Don't forget that June is the child of Orion Aslan and the half-brother of the current ruler of Leiden, Gideon. Also important to note that the more you fix up your homeworld and advance your civilization, the more attention that you'll draw from hostile forces that vastly outmatch you. So this is likely where Celestials come into play, like the Marayama and the Crown Celestials. So it's a hero story of humble beginnings to grand epic. So Celestials are the descendants of the first humans that left Earth that settled the Centauri cluster, and they evolved over tens of thousands of years into various divergent aliens, you could say. And someone asked what led to the war between the humans and the Celestials, as sometimes the story presentation does make it seem like there's some sort of war going on. Now James, however, made sure to clarify a few things here though, and said if there was an all-out war, humans would lose instantaneously, as the Celestials possess technological prowess that far exceeds anything that humans have. So Exodus is more so a story about humans being at the bottom of the food chain in the galaxy and trying to survive that, rather than being at, all-out war with Celestials. We know for a fact that we'll be interacting with Crown Celestials, and they certainly look at humans as dumb animals. And in some areas of this dwarf galaxy, such as the Crown Dominion, Crown Celestials even completely control human planets, as they use humans to do cheap labor for all sorts of stuff. This is not the case for the planet of Leiden, so it's going to be a little bit different in Exodus, the game. And another Celestial confirmed to be in the game is the Marayama. Both the Crown Celestials and the Marayama are the two biggest Celestial dominions who are still active in the cluster. And the devs reinforced to us that these grotesque creatures, which come in many different shapes and sizes, are pretty much just pure evil. They want to kill and harvest everything, while the Crown Celestials are much more nuanced, civilized, and just more human-like overall, even though many of them just hate humans, and some of them probably want to kill them too. Also, interestingly enough, our home planet of Leiden was once a celestial civilization, but those Celestials are now extinct. We, the players, will be investigating what these Celestials were, like what species, etc., and what happened to them. And one of the themes of Exodus is those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. Exodus also features creatures known as changelings, which are creatures that are created by Celestials to be their servants, their workforce, their soldiers, etc. And changelings are sometimes used by Celestials to colonize worlds that are hostile. So they'll basically send them in ahead as cannon fodder and then come to that planet when things are much more controlled and safe. Changelings will introduce some interesting questions in the game, such as what it means to be human. And there's a lot of really cool changeling species. I'll have an entire video just for this topic. Everything in the universe of Exodus is terrestrial in nature, meaning of Earth, but the catch here is that tens of thousands of years of evolution, genetic engineering, etc. has altered pretty much every species that you come across. So while there are not technically any aliens in Exodus, aliens as in extraterrestrial aliens, the universe and creatures that you encounter are still going to feel quite bizarre and alien. As someone who is reading the Archimedes Engine and has read the Exodus Encyclopedia, there's a crazy amount of diversity when it comes to creatures and beings, and it gets pretty wacky, alien, and interesting. Now let me touch back on travelers. So the player character June is a member of a traveler dynasty called the Aslan dynasty. Travelers are meant to be the heroes of human worlds. They're the explorers, the adventurers, stuff like that. Travelers are the humans that are willing to travel the dangerous cluster, which of course means a life of dealing with time dilation and dangerous creatures. And most travelers do have the main goal of helping elevate humans in a hostile galaxy. However, the way that a traveler does that can be drastically different from another traveler, and this is where traveler dynasties come into play, which are basically different factions of travelers. There's different traveler dynasties on different worlds, and some of them can be in conflict with one another, and sometimes different dynasties may form alliances with one another. All travelers are united by the Traveler's Creed, but there are a number of sub-philosophies that the game will explore that can create some interesting dynamics, especially when we encounter travelers from other dynasties in the game, which is confirmed. For those of you that are reading the Archimedes Engine, please note that Exodus the game will not take place in the Crown Dominion, which is important to note because the Crown Dominion is ran by and completely controlled by Crown Celestials. Where the game takes place, humans are not dominated or under the rule of Celestials, although we still will be interacting with Crown Dominion Celestials, maybe even some from the book, as these things pretty much live forever. The planet of Lydon, which is June's home, is ruled by humans, which makes it very different from the human experience that characters like Finn in the Archimedes Engine will, experience as they are in the Crown Dominion. Do note that Archetype did tell us, though, that Finn, the main character from the book, will share some stuff with June. And I'm assuming that they're saying this because Finn in the book is a Uranic human, it's called, and June is descended from a celestial mother. I don't think it's confirmed that June is actually a Uranic human specifically, but Uranic humans would likely be similar to a human like June, who has a celestial mother, as they both have some unique celestial type abilities. And to end the video, in one of the Q&As, Archetype told us that the core vision of this game has remained stable since the very beginning. They have had this one vision and basically stuck to its core tenets for the entire time of the game's development. Now, the reason why I think it's important to mention this is because if that's actually true, I would say it gives us more hope of this game being something good and special, as games that flip and flop too many times during development oftentimes don't ever arrive at a true identity or don't ever have time to actually, be what they wanted to be. Now, this does not appear to be the case with Exodus, which is great to hear, although only time will tell. And that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If Archetype does any more Q&As in the future, I can cover those individually now that I'm caught up and you guys are all caught up with all the previous Q&As, and expect a ton of Exodus content from now until the game's launch, which we don't have a date just yet, but in December we should be getting a release date, and that does include a deep lore series that I'm planning on doing. I'll catch you all on the next one.